Minister, would you please comment on the recent increases in public transport prices since the beginning of November? The Leap card prices have increased, and since the beginning of December, cash fares on Dublin Bus have increased, and Dublin Bus cater for 50% of all public transport users.
Thank you, Deputy. Ceann Comhairle, notwithstanding the National Transport Authority being responsible for determining fares in respect of publicly funded bus and rail services, and the fact that I do not have a role in the setting of these fares, I am very much aware that the changes in bus and rail fares recently announced will cause hardship for many commuters in this city and across the country. I'm also aware they may lead to some questioning the value of public transport. As the Deputy knows, on October the 28th last, the NTA issued its 2015 fares determination for Lewis and CIE companies, covering monthly and annual tickets, cash fares, Leap card fares and prepaid tickets. The NTA has continued its plans to increase use of the Leap card integrated ticket by keeping fare increases to a minimum when compared to cash. In fact, even with the fare increases approved by the NTA, a Leap card fare in 2015 will nearly always be the same or lower than the cash fare in 2012. There are now over 750,000 Leap cards in circulation and almost €2 million per week used in travel credit, which provides, I think, very strong evidence of the convenience and value it offers to the travelling public. In contrast to a trend of reducing PSO allocations in recent years, I have ensured that the level of PSO funding for rail and bus is being maintained in 2015 at current levels. The maintenance of subsidy funding for public transport at present levels has enabled the NTA to moderate the fares increases necessary so that the operators can maintain as far as possible the current level of services and also can respond to sectors where demand is growing and capacity needs to be increased. The cost of public transport is one of the reasons I was very keen to ensure we stop cutting the level of public subvention to the CIE companies, and why I hope we will begin to see that level of funding start to grow again from 2016. Coupled with increased passenger numbers in the future, I fully expect to see such fare increases become a far less frequent occurrence in the future. Thank you.
Deputy Coppinger.
Well, Minister, it's a bit convenient to say that you don't have a role in the fare increases. It's like the HSE, it's like Irish Water, now we've the NTA, that's at a remove from government. This might explain your plummeting in the polls, because this is a significant increase in expenditure for ordinary working people. The cash fare in Dublin Bus to get to the city centre, for example, from Blanchardstown is €3.30, and from Tala, €3.30. With a Leap card, if you're a regular user, it's €2.60. Since you've come to power, the cost of public transport has gone up by 48%. For example, a fare into the city in 2011 was €2.30. Now a fare into the city, into Dublin City, is €3.30. So, but since 2007, it's actually gone up by 75%. But
So
people's wages and incomes haven't gone up by that percentage, and in fact, many people are in part-time and precarious work and are working less. So it's costing them about an hour's
overtime.
It's costing them about an hour's labour to pay a bus fare.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. In 2013, CIE received €408 million in current and capital funding from the government. And I am absolutely aware of the hardship that these fare increases have caused. They are due in part to the terrible difficulty that the economy has been in. And I have said that as we can rebuild the level of funding, I hope and expect that what we have seen happen over the last number of years does not happen again in terms of frequency of fare increase or the magnitude of increase. But the figures speak for themselves also in relation to how much funding is being made available, over €400 million. And in response to a priority question from Deputy Collins earlier on, I indicated that I will be looking to increase the level of funding and capital funding for the group to make further support made available to them. But the question for you, Deputy, is where you believe this money could be found from.
Thank you.
Do you believe the fare should be scrapped? Do you believe further money should be made available? And if so, from where?
Deputy Coppinger.
Minister, we could try a well tax on anything over £1 million. That would bring in a huge amount of money, almost £3 billion. We could try a financial transactions tax. But I would dispute your figures with regard to subvention. I believe that this government is deliberately allowing the public transport system to run down, to have to provide a service on less money, so that you can privatise it at a very short time. That's clearly the aim of the last Minister, Leo Varadkar, and I believe it's the aim of yourself. As it is, Dublin Bus is trying to maintain services.
Deputy, this is question time. Would you put a question? Don't make statements at question time.
As it is, Dublin Bus is trying to maintain services. How is it to do that with less money? Yeah, since 2009, public transport subvention has been cut by £55 million. The National Transport Authority says that it aims to privatise 10% of all Dublin bus routes. Can the Minister comment on that? And workers in those companies will be transferred to that private company under recent legislation, where they're supposed to be able to maintain their wages and conditions. But as we saw with the Greyhound workers, that didn't work out too well. The Minister's gone over his time each time as well.
No, sorry, Deputy. Excuse me. I'm trying to get proper answers for deputies, not making statements. Minister.
Thank you, Cancorla. Deputy, at this point in the year now, 181 million journeys now have been made in public transport. It's an increase in 4% versus the same period 1 year ago, within which Dublin Bus and Bus Company and Bus Éireann have now recorded their first increase in passenger journeys now in many years. And I mean, what strikes me about the answer to your question is, of course, you give the same answer to every question. When you're asked where would you find more money for hospitals, you say a wealth tax. When you're asked where we find more money for our schools, you say a wealth tax. The only thing that's constant in your question, in your answer, is, of course, it's the same answer to everything. You spend the money again and again and again, and were you to be in a position to bring that in, it's pretty likely to be no wealth left in our country at all.
Thank you.
And you're speaking to the Minister who, for the first time in many years, maintained the level of current funding that went into the CIE group for this year, the level of subvention.
Thank you, Minister.
And I've already given a commitment that I'm going to look to increase the level of capital funding in the future. I'm well aware of the difficulties that people face, but we have companies here doing well, and we've increased the funding for them for the first time in a number of years.
There are other deputies sitting here waiting for their question.